What if I told you that one of the greatest goalkeepers in history, a man who became a living wall, a symbol of invincibility, never even wanted to play in goal? What if the man they called Superman started his journey as a midfielder, with dreams of scoring goals, not stopping them? This is the story of a twist of fate, an impossible decision that changed football forever. And if you're a true lover of the beautiful game's most dramatic stories, you're going to want to stick around, so make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss a second of this. Our story begins in 1991, in the sun-drenched fields of Parma, Italy. The Parma Academy was a hotbed of talent, a place where dreams were forged in the sweat and mud of the training pitch. And among all the hopefuls, there was one young boy who stood out. A midfielder with a natural grace, a powerful stride, and a vision for the game that seemed far beyond his years. His coaches saw in him the potential for greatness, a future pillar of the team orchestrating play from the heart of the field. That boy's name was Gianluigi Buffon. But football, like life, has a funny way of ignoring the script. In the summer of 1990, the world had been captivated by the World Cup held in Italy. And a young Buffon, like millions of others, was glued to his television screen. He wasn't just watching the dazzling skills of the outfield players, though. His eyes were drawn to one man, a figure of stoic defiance between the posts for Cameroon, Thomas Nkono. He saw Nkono's incredible saves, his commanding presence, his fearless dives at the feet of onrushing strikers. It wasn't just goalkeeping. It was an art form, a display of raw courage that spoke to something deep inside the young midfielder. An idea wild and audacious began to form in his mind. He walked into his coach's office, his heart pounding. The words that came out of his mouth were met with stunned silence, then disbelief. He, their most promising young midfielder, wanted to abandon everything and become a goalkeeper. It was madness. A career-ending mistake before his career had even truly begun. His coaches tried to reason with him, to talk him out of this reckless fantasy. But Buffon's mind was made up. He had seen his calling not in the midfield, but in the lonely, glorious space between the goalposts. The club, bewildered but perhaps intrigued by his conviction, gave him a chance. What happened next is the stuff of legend. Within 2 weeks, just 14 days of pulling on the goalkeeper's gloves for the first time, Gigi Buffon had not just learned the position, he had mastered it in a way that defied all logic. He moved with an instinct that couldn't be taught. His reflexes were electric, his hands were like magnets to the ball. The same coaches who had tried to dissuade him now watched in open-mouthed awe. They had lost a great midfielder, but they had gained something else entirely. Within those 2 weeks, everyone at the academy knew without a shadow of a doubt that he was the best goalkeeper they had. His rise was nothing short of meteoric. The whispers from the academy reached the first team stories of this prodigious kid who had reinvented himself. And sooner than he could have possibly imagined, the call came. He was just 17 years old, still a boy in many ways, when he was told he would be making his Serie A debut. And not just any debut. He would be facing the mighty AC Milan, a team of global superstars, the Invincibles led by the legendary Fabio Capello. The day of the match was a blur of nerves and adrenaline. The roar of the crowd at the Stadio Ennio Tardini was deafening. As he walked out onto the pitch, he saw them, Baggio, Weah, Savicevic, legends, giants of the game. And across from them stood a 17-year-old kid making his professional debut. Milan dominated the match, as everyone expected. They threw everything they had at the Parma goal, wave after wave of relentless attacks. But each time they were met by this fearless teenager who seemed to be everywhere at once. He commanded his area with the authority of a veteran, his voice cutting through the stadium noise. He made save after save, each one more incredible than the last. He dove, he stretched, he caught, he punched. By the final whistle, the scoreboard read 0-0, a clean sheet, against one of the greatest club sides ever assembled. The world of football sat up and took notice. A star had not just been born, he had exploded into the firmament. Everyone knew from that day forward that Gianluigi Buffon was a name to remember. He played only 8 more matches that season, conceding a mere 1 goal per game on average. But the message was clear. The future had arrived. The following season, at just 18 years of age, the starting goalkeeper position was his. There was no question. He played with a maturity that belied his youth, becoming the bedrock of a young, exciting Parma team. That season, he helped lead them to an incredible second-place finish in Serie A, their highest ever. They qualified for the Champions League for the first time in the club's history, a dream come true for the fans and the city. And Gigi Buffon was at the heart of it all, conceding only 17 league goals all season. It was an astonishing achievement for a player who just a few years earlier had been a midfielder. The next season was a test of character. Parma finished a respectable 5th in the league, but their Champions League journey was a harsh lesson. They finished 2nd in their group, which, under the rules of the time, wasn't enough to advance to the knockout stages. But it was during this season that a new legend was born, a nickname that would follow him for the rest of his career. Parma were playing against Inter Milan, and Inter were awarded a penalty. The man stepping up to take it was none other than Ronaldo Il Fenomeno, the reigning Ballon d'Or winner and the most feared striker on the planet. The stadium held its breath. The 19-year-old Buffon stood on his line, staring down the world's best player. The whistle blew. Ronaldo struck the ball with power and precision. But in a flash of yellow, Buffon launched himself to his right, his hand connecting with the ball, pushing it away to safety. The Tardini erupted. In a spontaneous explosion of pure, unadulterated joy, Buffon ripped off his goalkeeper jersey. Underneath, he was wearing a T-shirt with the Superman logo emblazoned across his chest. He stood before the jubilant fans, a young hero who had just done the impossible. From that day on, he was Superman. That summer, he earned his first cap for the Italian national team in a crucial World Cup playoff against Russia, another milestone in his incredible journey. Now it's a moment like that, the birth of a legend, that makes you wonder. What would you do if you were in his shoes, faced with the world's best player from 12 yards out, with the weight of the match on your shoulders? Would you trust your instinct? What goes through a player's mind in that split second? Let me know in the comments below what you think is the key to a great penalty save. Is it luck, research, or pure psychological warfare? The 1998-99 season would be the pinnacle of his time at Parma. The club had assembled one of the greatest teams in its history. This wasn't just Buffon's success. He was part of a golden generation. Alongside him stood defensive titans like Fabio Cannavaro and Lilian Thuram, midfield dynamos like Juan Sebastian Veron, and lethal strikers like Hernan Crespo. They were a force to be reckoned with. That season, they conquered Europe, beating Bordeaux, Atletico Madrid, and finally Marseille in the UEFA Cup final to win the club's second-ever European trophy. As if that wasn't enough, they also triumphed in the Coppa Italia, defeating a brilliant Fiorentina side in a dramatic final. Even surrounded by such incredible talent, Buffon shone the brightest. He was named Serie A Goalkeeper of the Year, won the Bravo Award, the equivalent of the Golden Boy Award at the time for the best young player in Europe, and received his first ever nomination for the Ballon d'Or. He was no longer just a prodigy. He was one of the best in the world. He would play 2 more seasons for Parma, his beloved club. In his final year, he led them to another Coppa Italia final, though they would ultimately lose. In the league, they secured a 4th-place finish. And once again, he was named Serie A Goalkeeper of the Year and nominated for the Ballon d'Or. But the reality was setting in. Parma, for all their magic, was a selling club. The giants of European football were circling their checkbooks open. The pressure to sell their crown jewel became immense. In the summer of 2001, the inevitable happened. Juventus, the grand old lady of Italian football, made an offer that Parma simply couldn't refuse, 52 million euros. It was a mind-boggling sum, a world record fee, for a goalkeeper that would stand for an incredible 17 years. Buffon, the boy who had remade himself in Parma's academy, was now the most expensive goalkeeper in the history of football. What might surprise you, though, is that he was on the verge of signing for Barcelona. The deal was all but done. But his father, a constant and guiding presence in his life, had one dream: to see his son lift the Serie A title, the Scudetto, in Italy. For Gigi, his father's dream was his own. He chose Juventus. He stayed in Italy. The weight of a 52 million euro price tag can crush a player. But not Buffon. He arrived at Juventus and slotted in seamlessly, as if he had been born to wear the black and white stripes. In his very first season, he was imperious, conceding the fewest goals of any goalkeeper in the league. Juventus won the Serie A title. His father's dream and his own was realized. He was also named Serie A Goalkeeper of the Year for the third time. That summer, he traveled to the 2002 World Cup as Italy's undisputed #1. He played every single minute of their campaign, even saving a crucial penalty against co-hosts South Korea. But it wasn't enough to prevent a controversial and heartbreaking exit. His second season at Juventus, however, would be one of his best ever. The year started with a victory in the Italian Super Cup. They followed that up by winning the Serie A title for the second consecutive time, with Buffon once again conceding the fewest goals in the league. But the biggest prize was still out there, the Champions League. Juventus carved a path through Europe, defeating Barcelona, and then the mighty Real Madrid of the Galacticos in the semi-finals. It was in that tie against Madrid that Buffon produced another moment of magic, saving a penalty from Luis Figo that would have surely sent Juventus crashing out of the competition. They had reached the final. An all-Italian final at Old Trafford, the theater of dreams, against their fierce rivals, AC Milan. The match was a tense tactical affair, a chess match between two of the world's best teams. Chances were few and far between, though both teams hit the woodwork. After 120 grueling minutes, the score was still 0-0. It would all come down to penalties. This was Buffon's stage, the ultimate test of a goalkeeper's nerve. And he was heroic. He stood tall, an intimidating presence in the goal. He saved 2 Milan penalties, guessing right, using his incredible agility to deny them. But it was a night of cruel irony. Despite his heroics, his own team Juventus faltered. They missed 3 of their 5 penalties. The dream was over. Buffon sank to his knees, a picture of utter devastation, as AC Milan celebrated around him. Despite the crushing defeat, his performances had been so extraordinary that he was not only named UEFA Club Goalkeeper of the Year, but he was also awarded the UEFA Club Footballer of the Year award, the best player in the entire competition. It was a rare, almost unprecedented honor for a goalkeeper, a testament to just how incredible he had been. The next season brought disappointment with Juventus, finishing 3rd in the league, and Buffon surprisingly failing to win the Serie A Goalkeeper of the Year award. Still, he was named to the UEFA Team of the Year, for the 3rd time, a mark of his consistent excellence. The next 2 years were a strange mix of success and foreboding. Juventus won the league twice more on the pitch, and Buffon reclaimed his Goalkeeper of the Year awards. But it would all prove to be meaningless. In 2006, Italian football was rocked to its core by the Calciopoli scandal. Dozens of players, including Buffon, were implicated in an illegal betting ring. His place as Italy's #1 for the upcoming World Cup was suddenly in grave danger. The pressure was immense, the scrutiny unbearable. But Buffon maintained his innocence, and he was soon absolved of all charges when it was proven that while he had placed wagers, he had never bet on matches he was directly or indirectly involved in. He was cleared, but his club was not. Juventus were found guilty of match fixing. They were stripped of their 2 previous league titles, and in a move that shook the footballing world, they were relegated to Serie B. It was a disaster, a humiliation for one of the world's biggest clubs. And this is a moment that truly defines a player's character. Your club stripped of its titles and relegated in disgrace. Other stars were already packing their bags. What do you do? Do you jump ship to protect your own career? Or do you stay and fight for the club that has been plunged into darkness? It's a choice between personal glory and profound loyalty. Just as this drama was unfolding, the 2006 World Cup arrived. The Italian team traveled to Germany under a dark cloud, their domestic league in tatters. But what followed was one of the greatest stories of redemption in football history. Italy, led by their embattled but defiant goalkeeper, became a defensive juggernaut. They finished top of their group with Buffon conceding only a single goal, an unlucky own goal. In the knockout stages, they faced Australia, then Ukraine, then the host nation Germany in a classic semi-final. Through all of those games, Buffon did not concede a single goal from open play. He was a wall, a fortress of calm and concentration amidst the storm. They had reached the final. Their opponents, a French team led by the legendary Zinedine Zidane. The final was an epic battle. France scored an early penalty, but Italy equalized. The match was on a knife's edge. And it was Buffon who kept Italy in it, making a series of breathtaking saves, most notably a flying fingertip save to push a powerful Zidane header over the bar. It was a save that defied physics and kept Italy's dream alive. The match, famous for Zidane's infamous headbutt, went to penalties. This time, there would be no heartbreak for Buffon. He didn't save any of the penalties, but he didn't need to. David Trezeguet, his own Juventus teammate, smashed his penalty against the crossbar. Italy were perfect. They were world champions. Gigi Buffon, the boy from Parma, had reached the pinnacle of the sport. He spent the rest of that year playing in Serie B, the second division of Italian football. A World Cup winner playing in front of smaller crowds in less glamorous stadiums. Yet his stature had never been higher. He finished second in the voting for the 2006 Ballon d'Or, behind only his Italy captain, Fabio Cannavaro. He was only the 4th goalkeeper ever to make the podium, and only the 2nd after the legendary Lev Yashin to finish in the top 2. It was a remarkable achievement. He led Juventus to the Serie B title, securing their immediate promotion back to Serie A. The captain had stayed with his ship, and he had steered it back to safe harbor. The following season, back in the top flight, he was the key player as Juventus, against all odds, finished in 3rd place. He won his 7th Serie A Goalkeeper of the Season award and was nominated for the Ballon d'Or once again. If stories of loyalty, resilience, and rising from the ashes are what you love about football, then you're in the right place. We tell stories like this every week, diving deep into the legends of the game. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our community of football story lovers. The next few years were a struggle. Juventus found it difficult to recover from the damage of relegation. Many key players had left, and the club was in a rebuilding phase. It wasn't until 2012 that they would lift a trophy again. And when they did, it was the big one, the Scudetto. It was a triumph born of grit and determination, and Buffon's incredible performances were the foundation of their success. He would later describe that title win as the second greatest moment of his career, second only to that magical night in Berlin when he lifted the World Cup. The next season, a new era began at Juventus. Buffon joined forces with a trio of formidable defenders, Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci, and Andrea Barzagli. Together, they formed the BBC, one of the most formidable defensive units Europe has ever seen. That season, they conceded just 16 goals all year. Buffon also inherited the captain's armband following the departure of the club icon Alessandro Del Piero. It was a role he was born to play. He was a leader, a commander, the heart and soul of the team. He continued to perform at an impossibly high level, sweeping up all the domestic awards for best goalkeeper. But the ultimate prize, the one that had eluded him so painfully, remained. In 2015, after a 12-year absence, Juventus were back in the Champions League final. They had defeated Real Madrid in the semi-finals, and Buffon, at 37 years old, had another shot at glory. This time they faced a Barcelona team boasting the terrifying attacking trio of Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. It was a valiant effort, but Barcelona's quality was too much. Goals from Neymar, Suarez, and Rakitic secured a 3-1 victory for the Catalan Giants. For the second time, Buffon had lost a Champions League final. Still, his excellence was recognized with a place in the UEFA Team of the Season. The following season, he broke yet another record. He set the all-time unbeaten streak in Serie A, going an incredible 974 minutes without conceding a single goal. He kept 21 clean sheets that season and was named Juventus Player of the Season. The legend just kept growing. Then came the 2016 to 2017 season. Once again, Juventus stormed their way to the Champions League final. The defense with Buffon as its commander seemed almost unbeatable. The final in Cardiff was heavily hyped, billed as a clash of titans. It was Cristiano Ronaldo's Real Madrid against Buffon's Juventus. The unstoppable force versus the immovable object. The narrative was perfect. This had to be his year. But football rarely follows the script. Just 20 minutes into the match, Ronaldo found a pocket of space. The ball came to him, and with his very first shot of the game, he fired it past Buffon and into the net. He ran to the cameras, celebrating iconically, yelling, "One shot, boom." It was a hammer blow. Madrid were clinical, ruthless. Ronaldo would score again, and the game would eventually end in a brutal 4-1 defeat. For the third time in his career, Gianluigi Buffon had reached the final of the Champions League. And for the third time, he had lost. At the end of 2017, at the age of 39, he finished fourth in the Ballon d'Or voting, narrowly missing the podium. It was an absolutely unbelievable achievement for a player of his age. But it was scant consolation for the heartbreak in Cardiff. The next season, fate decreed another showdown with Real Madrid and Ronaldo, this time in the quarter-finals. The first leg in Turin was a nightmare. Juventus were beaten 3-0, a match made famous by Ronaldo's spectacular bicycle kick goal. A goal so good that even the Juventus fans rose to applaud it. It seemed that Buffon's dream was over once again. But the second leg at the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid was the scene of one of the most incredible comeback attempts in Champions League history. Juventus, with nothing to lose, played with a furious intensity. They scored once, then twice. With just over half an hour to go, they scored a third. It was 3-0 to Juventus, 3-3 on aggregate. They had done the impossible. They had silenced the Bernabeu. As the clock ticked into injury, extra time seemed certain. But then, the cruelest twist of fate. A cross came into the Juventus box. Ronaldo rose, towering over the defense, heading the ball down towards Lucas Vázquez. Before Vázquez could score, Mehdi Benatia bundled into his back. The English referee, Michael Oliver, pointed to the spot. A penalty. In the 93rd minute. Buffon lost his mind. All the years of frustration, of near misses, of agonizing heartbreak boiled over in a torrent of uncontrollable rage. He stormed towards the referee, screaming, cursing, his face contorted in disbelief and fury. For him, it was a soft penalty, a cruel injustice that was about to shatter his dream once more. The referee, faced with this onslaught, had no choice. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a red card. Gianluigi Buffon, in what everyone assumed was his final ever Champions League match for Juventus, was sent off. He trudged off the pitch, watching as Ronaldo calmly stepped up and smashed the penalty into the net, sending Real Madrid to the final. Buffon, helpless in the tunnel, had watched his dream die in the most dramatic and painful way imaginable. That summer, he announced he was leaving Juventus. It was the end of an era. He moved to PSG, where he won the French league in his first season. But once again, the Champions League brought only disappointment, as PSG suffered a shocking comeback defeat to Manchester United in the last 16. In a strange twist of fate that same season, Cristiano Ronaldo, his great rival and tormentor, signed for Juventus. And Buffon, who had always spoken of his admiration for Ronaldo and a desire to one day play with him, felt the pull of home. After just 1 year in Paris, he decided to come back to Juventus, the club he loved. He returned not as the undisputed number 1, but as the backup goalkeeper to Wojciech Szczęsny, a humble role for a legend of his stature. He accepted it with grace, a final act of service to his club. Gianluigi Buffon is a true legend of the game. His name is synonymous with goalkeeping excellence, a byword for being unbeatable. He was more than just a shot stopper. He was a true commander, a player who could influence the game far beyond his penalty area. He was the young prodigy who became one of the biggest names football has ever seen. The only shadow on an otherwise glittering career is the absence of that Champions League trophy, the one prize that always remained just out of reach. It's really hard to dislike a player like Buffon. He has always carried himself with class, a symbol of excellence and longevity. Even in his lowest moments, he has been a role model, the definition of what it means to be a top professional. And that's where this incredible football story concludes. What a journey, right? I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment stood out to you the most? Was it the Superman save against Ronaldo? The loyalty to stay with Juventus in Serie B? Or the heartbreak of those 3 Champions League finals? Please share all your opinions, your favorite moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you.